Greetings, everybody. Thank you for joining It's Different Learning and Educational Series. This is It's Different News, Views, and Music Show. My name is Srinivasa, and thanks for joining. We do this week after week as a community service to just educate and present our learnings. We care and we share with everybody. And also, we would like to hear from you on great topics and your learnings and experiences as well. And today's topic is going to be on post-lockdown readiness. Are you ready? Everybody is eagerly waiting for getting back to work in the sense they are already working remotely, but getting back to work in their actual place of work, right? In office space. So today we are going to talk about the planning, the execution, and how do you manage and monitor. So I'm going to introduce two gentlemen here to join our conversation here. One is Mr. Sundar Padmanaban. He is a senior vice president and a digital transformation leader at Bhavan Cybertech. He's a strategist and a business tech executive with 30 plus years of experience in delivering world-class value-driven enterprise solutions, addressing rapidly changing business needs and enterprise across various domains. He's one of the founding members of Bhavan Cybertech. He spearheads the digital and IP business, channels and alliances, revenue responsibilities in North America. As a senior vice president, he has been with the BCD for 20 years, helping Fortune companies and has global experience. And welcome, Sundar. Thanks for joining us today.
Good evening, Sri. Right? Thanks for having me today. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. And of course, you're all very familiar with coach and mentor Prabhu. And just for the benefit of our viewers who are joining the very first time. So Prabhu, as you know, he's has got 30 years of experience in business development and channel marketing. He has done his BS in applied science. He is well versed with product management, recruiting, and mentoring in software and consulting industry, championing implementation of ERP tools and cloud CRM and digital transformation leader again. So we got two great leaders in this program. He's also a big proponent of positive thinking and great service-minded good karma activities. Very familiar with social media marketing for business and philanthropic activities. And he's one of our good friends like Sundar. We all have a common things that we all share. And just for the benefit of listeners, let me just give a brief about me as well. I like program management, just making things happen from a facilitation perspective. Certified PMP and certified in governance in enterprise IT and information systems audit and governance. Recently, a graduate from Harvard Business School on the Harvard Business Analytics program on digital innovation, disruptive innovation, and how a company can strategize and take care of the operational excellence, as well as pay attention to the customer and make things easier for a customer to operate. A public speaker and also a broadcaster, and conducting about 500 plus radio shows produced and presented through Stanford University. And I'm just running with all the support from you fans of It's Diff. So without much ado, I would like to open up this program. And what we are going to see in the next couple of, let's say, 55 minutes or so, as an organization, whether you are like in a, say, middle level, or it's a small business, medium enterprise, or a big enterprise, one key thing that's all in everybody's mind is, once when the lockdown is over, in some cases, actually, yes, people are returning back to work. Question, what are the things that we need to pay attention to in terms of ensuring health and safety and whatnot, and take care of vendors, customers? What is the priority? How do we do that? How do we take care of the team? How do you take care of the people? So there are a lot of people aspect, organizational aspects, and the team aspects. So we are going to talk to, share our learnings and experiences. In fact, we have got two gentlemen who are well versed in their experiences. So why don't we just kickstart the discussion? And as listeners, if you have any comments, questions, please feel free to comment and ask that. And we will be able to get your questions in about 20 minutes. So let's get started. So with Sundar first. Welcome, Sundar, once again to our program. So, Sundar, what are your aspects of returning back to work, as they say, in post-lockdown readiness perspective? Go ahead, please, Sundar.
Sri, good evening again. Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me on the show. And good evening, Prabhu. Nice to meet you here. It's a pretty critical topic that we are discussing today. And can we say we are post COVID-19? We cannot. There's a lot of uncertainties. People don't know what's going on. Businesses are on the edge for the last 100 days plus, for the last 2.5 months. But we know that at least the curve is declining. It's no longer going up. And it was on a steady state for a while. It started declining, the number of cases and people who are impacted, the cases being reported are coming down. So businesses are preparing to reopen as soon as they can, because businesses cannot indefinitely keep their business shut. So they got to open, they got to run the show, economy keeps going, life goes on. So given this background, I think the critical thing is leaders need to know what challenges they are facing post-lockdown as they're preparing to reopen. I call that as a reboot, if you will. We are rebooting the business after nearly a 3 months lockdown and waiting for employees to get back to work, waiting for customers to come back to business and do business with the enterprises. So there are a few things that leaders need to keep in mind. Number one is safety of the employees. They got to keep the employees very, very safe, which means they have to ensure they give a pretty safe workplace for them to come back and work. And the second thing is, how do you deal with your customers? How do you engage with your customers when they come back to do business with you? And the third thing is, you've got your ecosystem of vendors and contractors who are working with you. You got to make sure that you can deal with them in a seamless manner going forward. Now, all these standard operating procedures, all the business continuity planning you've historically kept for decades, all call for change right now, because people say it's a new normal. I don't think it is a normalcy. It is more of you adapt and you accept and move on. And it is a new way of doing things going forward. So given this constraint, all the situation and the background and what transpired in the last 3 months globally, which impacted billions, I think as leaders of businesses, they got to keep in mind how they manage the people, their internal staff, their external customers, vendors, how to keep the workplace very safe and make sure the mental health of the employees are taken care, because that has a direct impact on the productivity. These are some of the high-level pointers I just want to mention to just get the discussion started.
Very good. I think you got a very broad coverage, and sure, definitely. We'll go to Prabhu on his thoughts, and then we'll come back. Yeah, please, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sri, and nice to have you on the show, Sundar. I know we all meet socially, but it's really motivating to meet on a formal show on the leadership series, which Sri has been doing for the past couple of weeks. So, Sundar, you talked about reboot post-COVID. So, I wanted to talk about a couple of arts associated where we will be doing business and how the business leaders and the managers have to go about doing this. Is a couple of more arts, we need to reflect on what has happened, what we need to do, and what to do it. Recommit on what are our goals in the change situation. How are we going to deliver service or product to our customers and ecosystems surrounding us? Then re-engage with the employees, our external contractors and other people who make this organization and our extended ecosystem run, and also rethink what are all the other areas of business which post-COVID, what are all the new opportunities which we can go after, and how to assimilate those things into our business plan, and because there are a lot of new opportunities opening up, and some of the past opportunities would would not make any meaning right now in this change situation, and because our supply chains might have got interrupted and various different things have happened. So how are we going to be ready for this whole thing is the key aspect we have to think about. So with that, I think I will hand over to Sri again.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I think both of you have got great points that you mentioned about, which we can definitely dive into. So my learnings on this is, first of all, this is unprecedented, as everybody knows, but this is not the very first time. These things have like this happen. It's like it takes a cycle. It's like history repeats, right? Only thing is, it's disruptive right now, and as you guys said, it's opened up lots of opportunities. That's something which you never even thought it existed. You know what I mean? Like, why do we need such a big real estate space, right? Why are we driving 3 hours a day to work when something I can get this with the same productivity and efficiency? I can get the same thing done here, and I can give a work-life balance, right, and make my employee happy. So these are all. So first thing that I would like to say here is, this is an opportunity. Before even you start, hey, am I ready to open up? First of all, ask, what are your learnings in this exercise, in this 100 days? What did you learn? Is it from a business operations perspective, in terms of your whoever is a vendor, whoever is a customer, whoever is your end customer, I'm talking about, right? Your supplier. What has happened? How are they doing? First of all, my first thing that I would suggest is, please do a self-assessment with your leadership team and ask them this open question without anything. Okay, I'm going to start next month. No. What are the learnings? What did you guys find? What do you think worked? What do you think did not work? I would start with that first thing before even I get to, the important points, as Sundar mentioned, the health, the safety, and all those things. Definitely we need to dive into it. But first thing is, do a self-assessment, and possibly you could engage a consulting company as well, and or you can just use everybody with so much of experience, right? They can also observe and learn from others' experience. That's kind of what I wanted to say. And please, anybody, one of you got comments on that, please?
Yeah. So self-assessment is very important for everything. Just retrospecting what has gone past in the last 3 months. We live in an area we spend hours of time on commute every single day, right? So you spend in an average 2 hours, depends on where you live in and where you work. And one biggest difference is, you spoke about the work-life balance tree. For me, work is life, life is work, work is part of life. So you just keep doing, deciding how you want to live your life. And there's a lot of time being spent on commute, etc., which got saved, surprisingly. You don't no longer spend 2 hours on the road. You're no longer going to tell somebody that you're just driving. Can I just call you back? No more excuses, right? So you are available from morning to evening. One thing I noticed is the days are longer, the work days are longer compared to the pre-COVID-19 situation. You start your day pretty early in the morning with a cup of coffee or a tea, and you are just available. No excuses, right? So that's one big learning, which means you have more time at your disposal to do more work. And definitely that has a direct impact on how much you can do and your productivity. That's one thing. What are we missing is whatever you used to do outside your home. Like, you go for a hike, go to hit the beach, go for a biking, jogging, all those after hours activities that you no longer do. But it was tough in the first few weeks, but you get used to it and you start enjoying what you're doing. You do more work. You got a peace of mind. You're not worried about traffic and snails, etc. So you're at home, and it is a very different experience. And almost all of us have never experienced something like this in our lifetime. This is a global pandemic that most of us have not seen in the scale and size so far. But from a business standpoint, the biggest challenge is, it is not specific to a country or a industry or a region. It is global, which means nobody's spared. Everybody is in some scale or size impacted of this global pandemic. Now, there are some industries which took a pretty hard hit. Let's say oil and gas, for example. Oil and gas just went down to negative. You probably have read the news, what happened in March. The whole Middle East economy was at stake because of the oil and gas crash. That's historic. It never happened in the last 100 years, and none of us would have seen that before. Some industries like transportation, we all know that they're all grounded. No flights are flying, public transportation, people are not taking it. There's a lot of restrictions because people are at home. Some industries are really doing pretty well. So anything to do with home-based businesses, home services, for example, home-based businesses, including Zoom, for example. Zoom had 10 million in Feb, and they had 100 million 30 days later. And some businesses have flourished really in this situation. It depends on what industry business they are into. And but the reality is each business has its own size and scale of impact. And based on the impact they had in the last 100 years, the leaders have to come back and take a look at what's gone well, what did not go well, and what are the measures they can put in place when they start beginning to get the employees back to work going forward.
Good. Thank you. That's a great answer. Yes, Prabhu, please.
Yeah, so we talked about work from home. That's the word which we keep hearing even before COVID days. But right now, work from home could be extended more. Like now, the new terminology is work from anywhere. Even the client and your own company doesn't worry where you're working from. So they are as long as you have a proper connectivity, you have the proper IT infrastructure and the reach, you're available for the meeting, and the deliverables are identified, and you're able to perform to your fullest extent. The concept of work from anywhere is going to be the new normal for most companies. But there are certain functions which require people to come in and do certain things at the premises. So there will be minimal staff or minimal workforce which will continue to come to support the bigger operation. And from that perspective, there are certain aspects in terms of the health and safety of the employees which the management has to look at, like some of the possible things I could think of are like a contactless entry and exit for the employees when they come into the building or your facility. Or sometimes you might have to have different entry and different exit routes. That is another thing you could think of, and possibly are reconfigured. There should be some visual indications which are very much highlighted to the employees, so that they know where to get in and what are all the other facilities they could use within the structure. And couple of this leads to a couple of things like AR a mapping system of the whole organizations, and which could be digitally delivered to their mobile phones, or it could be provided as an app to the employees. And a couple of other things you could think of are: do we require all the staff into the organization or into the facility at the same time? Do we need to work in shifts? Do they need to come taking turns? So what is necessary immediately? What could be delayed? And also having the employees to compulsorily have a PPE, like a personal protective gear, so that they don't fall sick or they don't spread if they have any health ailments to other people. Especially one of the other things which we are obviously seeing in stores and banks and tellers and other places is a plexi glass wall, which is kind of barricading you, front-facing customers, to the service executives, so that there is less transmission, whatever is the germs or anything. And some of the organization, depending on the depending on what kind of risk you have in that specific country, you could also introduce thermal scanners and other digital equipment which will detect the temperature of the person who is walking in, so that you are forewarned about what is the health or what is the level of readiness the person has. And the contactless thing could be introduced even to the elevator and access to the various parts of the building. So these are some of the thoughts I put together in terms of the health and safety readiness for the infrastructure and from the management side.
No, it's very, very good. I think thanks for doing this. I think in short summary, in the last 8 minutes, we talked about health and safety is important. Getting the staggered approach of getting people into the organization is the right thing to do. You said the spacing we need to take us from an environmental health and safety, again, hygiene and other things. What I would like to say here is, especially when you said people get sick and things like that, there are two important aspects. Is the communication aspect. What employees need to expect as leaders, the organization need to communicate and say, guys, we got this, we protected. So make sure the emotional, the you know, that help them understand that we are providing a safety environment, and it is more like a safe security, very less risk, you know what I mean. Those kind of things need to assurance need to be given in the form of a constant communication with your employees about what they can expect. First thing, the communication. The second part I would like to say is some of the policies and procedures need to be updated and edited. How do you report sickness, right? How many sick leaves that can you take, for example? And then what if I'm nervous about getting back to work? I'm productive, like you said, I have productivity, efficiency, deliverables, everything is done, but I'm still nervous about getting back to work because there are some cases where people are more exposure to this because of their current conditions of their health. You know what I mean? So this is like equal opportunities for everybody at work, right? So you got to make sure that that is taken care of. So there is some legalities involved. There is some other policies that need to be redrafted, refined, and those policies need to be communicated. And from an HR perspective, some training that people have to go through and say, it's like, you abide by these rules and regulations when you get back to work. You are taking care of your safety. You are taking care of your colleague's safety, because think about it. 100 days, I have not seen my colleague, or maybe only in the Zoom call. When I get back to work, I have more inclination to go and shake his hands. And I wanted to, hey, let's go for a coffee. Let's do all that. So those are all the common things I wanted to, revive. A lot of people have discovered each other. Oh my God, I saw your picture in the wall. It's such a cool thing. So I'm just saying, communication back again. In the planning perspective, you need to make sure that policies need to be redrafted. HR needs to take a little bit higher, position here to make sure that the journey is smooth.
Sri, if I can just take a stab at it, right? So there are a lot of pointers, very important points that Prabhu and you kind of touched upon in terms of what businesses need to look at. If I can just group them into a few categories, just for the benefit of the audience, right? Irrespective of whether you are a small business, medium-sized business, or a global corporation with tens and thousands of employees, doesn't really matter. Whether you have 5 employees or 50,000 employees, doesn't really matter. What matters is, how do you handle this post-lockdown situation? So the first point, I think we spoke about, how do you manage people when they come back to work? Whether it's your employees, your customers, or your suppliers, contractors, whoever is coming back to work, how do you ensure their safety? And whatever measures are recommended by CDC in terms of social distancing, how do you ensure that those measures are being followed at the workplace? The second item is, as they come back to work, you need to decide who you want to let them come back to work. Of the 100 employees, how many of them can show up to work in week 1? You don't want all of them to show up not knowing where they've been, what they've done, where they traveled, etc. So you really want to get some information from them via, like Prabhu was talking about, contactless surveys or self-declarations or touchless surveys, whatever you want to call that, making sure that you understand, know about their whereabouts for the last 100 days, and make decisions whether or not to allow them to come back to work in phases at least. So, of the 100 employees, I'm going to let the 20 employees who handle critical functions to come back to work on week 1. Of the 20 employees, I know exactly where they've been, what their health status, temperature check, medical history, anyone in the family traveled out anywhere which is prone for COVID-19 impact, for example. That's the second pillar. So managing the people, they're knowing about the people. And then the third thing is, you mentioned about employees get a lot of information. There is too much content out there. WhatsApp forward, social content, TV, media, they read a lot about this all the time. And it's information overload. It's overwhelming for people. And some people don't like it, right? So you need to have some kind of channels to communicate back with them. And they should be able to communicate back to the business, which means you need to have some kind of a temporary helpline or dedicated counseling team who can be reached anytime by the employees to voice their concerns. If they're concerned about something they see in the workplace, they should be in a position to inform to the business immediately. So you're talking about some kind of helpline setup, which employees can use anytime, just to make sure that their mental well-being is taken care of. That's a third topic, which is very important.
Very
now, the fourth one is, as they come into the workplace, Prabhu was talking about knowing their whereabouts. You do a thermal check, temperature check, and let them in. But once they're inside the workplace, following the measures put in place by the employers in terms of social distancing, layout of the office space, etc., you should be able to trace the contacts, basically tracking and tracing the movement of the employees within the facilities. And the last item is to make sure that if you detect something, you are able to report it, you're able to record it, you're able to follow through it. Let's say someone fell sick after they report to work later in the afternoon. You should be able to kind of detect, isolate, take preventative measures, and also trace back to who else was in close proximity with that person, and make sure that they're taken care, they get the medical attention, and you follow through for the next 2 to 3 weeks and make sure that their well-being is taken care and they can come back to work later. So all these areas are extremely critical as you start preparing to reopen your business.
Yeah. Well, one thought came to my mind, Sundar, when you mentioned about in staggered approach. Even Prabhu also mentioned it, like, go by the alphabetical order, go by go by the regional specific, or go by business function specific, or by the essentialness. Because if you look at when they reopened, in some cases they first opened essential function, right, which is for the environment, for the public, and right. So in that cases, we got to think from a leadership perspective, what are the essential functions that needs to be opened up. And also, when you open up, if there are 30 people in that particular group, for example, right, you got to get paid. So meaning people in the payroll, they might be considered as essential. No, they can work from remote. They don't need to be there. But if you look at manufacturing, they are essential because they got to be there and producing the goods. So they cannot do it remotely. So you make a decision. And even if you do that, you do it as staggered approach within that team itself, and then see not everybody is called in at the same time. This is what I heard. And the second thing also is, even if you call people, maybe take turns. That one person comes in, he comes on like he or she, or who that is, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then you know what? Next week it turns. So you alternate so that you get opportunity, because a lot of people are, oh my God, can I just go get back to desk? And I've seen people, if you said emotional aspects, right? There are a lot of emotional thing. I've seen people's cubicle with their family pictures, everything like that. Now they get to spend too much time with the family. Now I said, you know what? Maybe which is better, whatever it is. So they are people like to work remotely with spending a lot of time with the family, but still they want to get back to their work. So you need to cover a lot of aspects there on that. And anyway, and I like the helpline, which is beautiful. So dear listeners, you're listening to It's Different Leadership Series. Today we are talking about post-lockdown readiness. We have Sundar Padmanaban. He's a Senior Vice President for Bhavan Tech and a digital transformation leader. And we have Mr. Prabhu Venkatesh Subramanaian, and he's also got business development and marketing experience, and a mentor and coach. And this is Srinivasa, producer and host of this show, and just sharing in the discussion. If you have any comments, questions, please do send it to us in a comment. We can see whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching through Twitter or through your Facebook. We have multiple places where you might be watching to this. Thank you so much for joining. I know it's a long day for some of the folks, right? And if you started your day, if you're in whichever part of the global, welcome. Have a nice day as well. Okay, Prabhu, you wanted to add your thoughts as well, please.
Yeah. Sundar mentioned about compliance to what CDC has published or the guidelines. So there is if you go to CDC's website, they have a very big toolkit, a very big checklist of items each of the employers need to go through, before letting employees to come and work at the workplace. So there is a lot of precautions, and there are also they have a standard thing, like which are some of the activities are going to be ongoing activities. How are we responding to that? Are we keeping the surfaces and other things clean? So this calls for complete revamping of the infrastructure. Like one of the things I came across about information was even the furniture and other places in the office infrastructure need to be revamped, which might like withstand deep cleaning and use of various cleaning aspects or the cleaning liquids, so that there is no compromise on the work that need to happen post cleaning after the employee comes and leaves every day. So if it needs for additional investments from the companies, that is like a key area, and there might be a outflow from the company side, but it's worth the precaution rather than facing some issues later on. Another aspect which I remembered was like how you talked about HR need to be ready, and they need to be trained on what are need to be mentored, how to help the employee. So one of the key aspects they need to remember is the confidentiality of the information they have access to right now. With this kind of situation, they might have a lot of access to the health records or the current health status. And especially Sundar talked about people who traveled last 90 days, what was their travel record, and which all countries did they travel. So that might, and we have heard newspaper reports and TV reports that some employees were from certain ethnicity were kind of shunned, or different kind of an attitude shown on those certain ethnicities. So those things might have a legal perspective to the company. So they have to protect themselves on how the employees treat each other, and how the company as a organization is going to handle any kind of those issues. From the legal perspective, they should be prepared. And another area where the companies might face a very high challenge is the right out from home or work from anywhere increasing, becoming the norm. So there is going to be a heavy demand on the IT services or the support services, IT infrastructure support services. So extra investments in terms of people wanting to have additional laptops or big screen monitors or ergonomic furniture or ergonomic keyboards and mouses, and whatever infrastructure they make it comfortable, will make them comfortable to work from home, replicating how they were working from the office. So these are some additional expense areas which the companies might have to be ready for, and be liberal in terms of saying those things, and provide provision for getting the maximum output from the employees. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Sundar.
Yeah, so I just want to say this: we may not have the vaccine yet, but there's a lot of technologies available to handle as the employees started preparing to come back to work. So I mentioned at the beginning that we are not out of the situation yet. We adapt, we accept, we move forward. Now, luckily, we have technologies available to handle some of the activities we've been touch basing for the last few minutes time, be it contact tracing. And secondly, let's not forget that all these actions we are talking about is not just for day one. It's not just for day 2 or day 30. It could be for the next 6 months. It could be for the next 1 year. So we are not talking about a 1 week activity to be taken care of post lockdown. We are talking about really a long-term process to be put in place, a redefined workplace, a redefined, defined way of doing business with your customers and contractors and suppliers, etc. So this is really a very serious topic. So not to be taken in any lighter sense, not about day one, not week one or month one. The research says that this impact is going to last for anywhere between 12 months to 18 months time minimum, assuming things are declining the way it is declining and gets back to some level of normalcy over a period of time. So businesses, irrespective of the size and scale, whether you're running a restaurant or a store or a mid-sized company or a very large corporation, they got to face this for the next 12 to 18 months time minimum. And then the way of life can be completely redefined based on what the situation is going to be down the road in the future, right? So these are pretty serious measures that we need to put in place just to make sure that business gets back to some level of normalcy and they can move forward. So we have the technologies available. Luckily, there are a lot of companies who are doing a lot of work, and leveraging these technologies will alleviate any kind of anomalies, any kind of outliers, handling the situation in a much faster way. Speed is a key here. You cannot really delay and depend on bureaucracy to handle the situation. So you got to leverage the technologies available at disposal, all the way from a wearable tech, which there are people who are talking about contact tracer apps in a mobile app, for example. Like India has an app that government released, which is used by a lot of companies. Like I forgot the name of the app, but it's used widely by everybody to know who in your proximity has come across with anyone tested positive, for example. But you cannot really take cell phone in several workplaces, be it a manufacturing shop floor facility. You're not allowed to carry your cell phone. Let's say hospitals, schools, for example. So there are companies who are talking about wearable technologies which people can wear just to keep the health check going on a frequent basis throughout the day, not just one time when they come back to work, throughout the day, multiple times, right? So somebody who shows up normal in the morning could fall sick in the afternoon. So how do you know that if you don't check them? So all the way from wearable tech to some kind of a command center that people establishes. There are a lot of companies who are looking at some kind of a command center setup to look at what's going on in the workplace. Where are these people in a large setup, for example? Where are these employees? Where is the crowd going on in a shopping mall, for example, or on a retail store, for example? So all these are extremely critical for businesses. It requires a holistic approach and a long-term approach. So we are not talking about a near-term action here.
No, I like the point you touched, because that's a good segue. Because one thing which I heard about is people are a little worried. What if there is a wave 2? We don't want that happening. What if it comes back in 6 months? Because especially if you look at what we heard on the media, it's summer, hot months and things like that. So, the virus and other things subside. There's no chance of getting them spread, etc. But then there is a likelihood that in the winter months, especially, there could be risky, things like that. Again, nothing is proven, but this is all people thinking, and I see a lot of people discussing about it. So, but again, the question here is, as a leader, from an organization standpoint, as an individual, a team or project, whatever, you need to be prepared and safeguard yourself first. And it's like wearing the mask, as we see, right, in the flight, right, the oxygen mask. So you do that, and then you protect ourselves. So when you wear a mask, I can still see people on the road, they are not wearing mask. And I said, I was telling my wife the other day, I said, you should put like, I'm wearing this to protect you, myself and you. You know what I mean? Everybody should read this. Don't smile. I mean, as see people see, they smile. Oh my God, I don't need it. So I've seen a lot of media coverage where they say, please don't take it lightly. As you said, Sundar, very rightly, don't take it lightly. Anyway, it's not like the world is coming down. No, we got it. We understood. We learn from our mistakes or learn from others' experience, and then we put a plan process together and monitor. So that's the key thing here. So what if, the question is, what if it is strike again? How are we prepared for this? We have to learn from our mistakes and do not repeat the mistakes again. So that's something where I would like to say here. Again, I'm going to leave this with a disclaimer. I mean, we are not doctors, we are no experts. I mean, we are learning from our experience. Dear listeners, that's one thing I want to claim here. Stiff is no expert in this. We are just sharing our experience and learning. So all the views and opinions and that is expressed here are that of the individual, and you are listening to this, and you can suit yourself to see what is applicable to your global conditions, your environmental conditions, your ecosystem, and where you are, and applicable to your health conditions and everything. Consult your doctor and take your own decision. You know what I mean? But it looks like it's as a community leader, it's an obligation to bring us into the forum and say, oh my God, are these things that we need to really pay attention to? That's the thing why we are doing this show right now, and I'm glad to bring such minds. And we also invite you, dear listeners, to post any comments, questions for the panel. We can just bring it out. Now, the next thing I wanted to touch is the opportunities, right? So when you say the lot of opportunities that evolve, because for example, for people who have never thought about, like a restaurant, if you take, they never thought about buying online, or taking the order online, or they never thought about integrating with the Uber Eats or DoorDash or whatnot, right? But now they're all looking into such opportunities to partner with them. So that means we coexist in this situation, right? So and so that means it explored a lot of opportunities. The second thing is, of course, real estate. We have got so much of a big office space. Why do we need all that if people are kind of balance it out, right? So that means you can cut down your overheads, and that's part of your efficiency. That's part of your exploit and explore. So you can really do a better job there in your operational excellence, for that matter. So I think yeah, we are. This is like the power of positive thinking, I would say. Thoughts?
Yeah, I would take an example of our own company. We had a setup in Hyderabad where within 20 days we figured out we can give up one floor worth of real estate, and we quickly decided that and made sure all the employees work from home. And one of the other challenges they did face was the connectivity issues, but we have provided backups and other facilities where that they are always connected as needed, as they would have got connected and to the available to the availability of the as required by the client. One of the things we also made sure was, since a lot of times they log into the production environment of various clients and work on some core data and all that, we focused quite a bit on the cyber security and the security aspects of what they are dealing with. And that is another area you'll see a lot of opportunities, a lot of growth, which the service companies like us or Sundar, so we can tend to go after because every other client is going to face these kind of challenges, and we need to help them gear for that. And some of our clients who are in the healthcare space, they saw a fivefold increase in the demand for the healthcare equipment, which were used for treating the COVID patients and other things. So we help them to face those kind of scenarios and created various models how it is going to hit the maximum or peak in the next couple of months and how it might taper down, so that they can engage with their proactively and plan for their supply chain. That was one of the which wanted to talk about in terms of how do you manage the vendors and what kind of inventory you carry. And we have done some key exercises for some of our clients on inventory and obsolescence accounting, and that is a very big area the companies need to focus. And there might be a lot of things which you'll be able to save costs. And this is I understand that even your accounting and the auditors are going to look at how you have handled this kind of situation, especially when you are a public company, or even for that matter a private company. So those are some of the aspects we helped our clients and vendors, and they're to kind of respond to this situation.
Yeah, it's like saying that you not only keep your perimeter safe with your security, you also talk about info security. That's a good thing that comes out, and also from an audit and compliance perspective, because of the rules and regulations that have changed in the way you operate your business in the competitive landscape. One has to really go back to the books and then check out as to how my things changed, and should I have to report back to the audit and compliance committee. Because yeah, I've learned enough on the information systems audit program, because I used to also provide my experience to a bit on basically the documentation and the process, because I'm from process world in terms of how do you prepare for your compliance on your ITGC controls, right? The general controls in terms of your revenue reporting controls, and also your other data governance, data privacy, and all those things. That itself is in fact a separate topic, Prabhu, and thanks for bringing it up. I will note it down in our bucket list. Okay, Sundar, please.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic to talk about opportunities, right? It's a blessing in disguise. All the situations still gives us some level of positivity to look at opportunities. There are many opportunities. I would I think the real estate point that you brought up, and then the security is very important, because you have no idea who's accessing your infrastructure from which location anymore. It's no longer within the firewall, right? So you let your employees work from home wherever they are and access your system, and you let your customers come online and do business with you. That you are not prepared. So that calls for a significant revamp of your infrastructure, security, everything else. That's a great point. I think there's one other very important point is, in service business, when you rely on your people, they got to be skilled, trained, ready to provide the service to your customers. This is the greatest opportunity to impart the necessary skills, learning, training, development to your employees, right? Historically, the challenge is, I don't have time. I'm too busy with my work. I really cannot dedicate time to take a 2 weeks training on something, for example. No more excuses. The last 100 days, we have worked with several companies, including our own internal employees. We imparted so much training that we couldn't do in the last 5 years, or at least 10 years, because people don't have any excuses of, I'm spending 4 hours on commute, working 60 hours a week, and no weekends, kind of, no more excuses, right? So training development is a great position to take a step back and look at how you prepare yourself. When I say you prepare yourself, you're preparing your employees to go back to work, be much more productive than they used to be historically, by training them, cross-skilling them, upskilling them, etc. That's the biggest opportunity, to get your employees trained, get your employees certified, whatever function they are in, you upskill them, cross-skill them, so they do much more better than what they used to do before. That's one area of opportunity for the business, to train the employees. The second thing is, digital transformation. It's a pretty abused word, digital transformation, big umbrella kind of word. It is no longer an option, especially with everybody sitting at home trying to do everything online. Companies have to prepare themselves to allow the customers to come and do business with them online in a digital form. The stores are closed, whether it is a restaurant, whether it's a pharmacy, whether it's a retail store. The stores are closed, doors are closed, people are not coming back anytime soon, which means there is a huge spike in the online transactions for every business that you can possibly think of. Whether it is education, your kids are taking Zoom classes like 4 hours a day, for example, right? You cannot really put a screen time control anymore, because they got to be in front of the screen throughout the day. You're no longer going to say, don't sit in front of the TV or a computer, because they have to do this right now. That's a new way of life for them. Which means anything associated to this kind of newer opportunity areas are great opportunities for the business to look at. They can look at their digital strategy. They can look at their online presence. They can enhance their own. I've seen, even as recent as last couple of months before, I've seen businesses not being online. It's not an option anymore. They have to be online, for example. So looking at the way you do business and engage with your customers by looking at digital technologies, moving to digital transformation areas are absolutely great opportunities for the businesses. So employee training, engaging with the customers, doing more online without worrying about when the business is going to open, etc., are some of the great opportunity areas for the businesses.
Okay. You touched a very sweet spot for me, because that's the digital strategy and online presence. Because one thing is, I'll put it in a simple way, make it easier for the customer to transact with you, in simple words, right? While you continue to research and inward to see what is the product feature that you're going to bring, ultimately you're going to serve your customers at the end of the day and make it easier. Because if you provide a product which is $10 less than your competitor's product, which can serve with a greater feature set, their customers are going to come to you, switch over from your competitor to you, because you're not just cost effective, but also you provide the greater feature stuff. And also you are the one which is easier with the support model, easier to find you. It's just buying stuff online and things like that. It's not just like putting a www dot something. That's not just we are talking about as digital transformation. It is a question about, what do you know about your customer? Who is your customer? How long have they been your customer? Is it a lead or a customer? Is it a prospect, or what is the cross-sell, upsell opportunities, as you very rightly said? And also, if you look at, this is very interesting. Of course, I'm from the HBAP world, Harvard Business Analytics, and it's so much of learning from my professors. And so thank you. So the thing is there, if you look at the way the data analytics plays a greater part is, for example, if you go to Netflix or Amazon, you watch a movie, suddenly says, hey, we recommended for you. You make them to watch and click on this. That's what is the engagement that you're trying to get, right? And also, say the people who bought this book, they're buying bought this book also. So you are like making the customer to purchase something. And not only that, you're also thinking and tell the customer what he should buy. That is you're just getting into, say, hey, you go and buy this, and then you'll go and buy without even showing anything. So I think the opportunities, the simplistic model is, if you've never even interacted with your customer in a digital way, where people have to come to your shop and then only they are to buy something, the first step is make sure you set up this B2C environment in first place. To make sure you do that, you collect enough data. You just do the marketing. We are all with marketing experience, digital marketing. And for me, it's in my MBA, it's my advanced marketing stuff. So one of the things that we do is, like, we just say, what campaigns work? How do I touch my customer? How do I communicate with the customer, interact with the customer? You're right. We can do all of this digitally and then create a disruptive as part of the innovation concepts, right? Everybody knows. But I am trying to be a disruptor by just making it easier for adding value to my customer. At the same time, I capture the value at the end of the day. That is my profitability and getting ahead of the curve. So that's a really very good point on digital strategy and digital transformation. That's very good. Okay, good. Prabhu, please, your comment.
Yeah, I have some information about some of the businesses which have been traditionally B2B. They figured out that there is a major transformation happening because of all the online purchases due to stores getting closed and all that. So they saw a very good opportunity. They moved a lot of their activity towards online web commerce or e-commerce, what you call. So they saw from 3 to 4% to almost 20% of their sales gone from B2B to B2C. And also there, I see a lot of potential in terms of vending machines and automatic dispensing machines in most of the near locations or nearby location, rather than the traditional store model, where the businesses could deliver these goods into some of these vending machines or digital lockers, so that the customer orders or go to those vending machines and digitally buy them, and automatically over the cloud the data gets updated, so you get a realistic update on the inventory as well as sales. And another aspect that from a company perspective that is going to have a very big impact is, like, especially employees are used to a lot of perks from the employer in terms of food available or cafeteria being open most of the all through the day, or even some places throughout the night. I think those are going to be a real no-no for at least for some time till all these are figured out, and most of the companies are going to adapt to a more an employee served or a attender served meal type of system, so that the contact points are very less, and instead of self-serve coffee machine, vending machines, and coffee, the ice cream vending machine or juice machines, it might be more employee or a contractor serving all those things. So it kind of opens up a different perspective for the food or convenience item suppliers, where the person who goes to work also has access to some of the other purchases he need to make before he goes back home. So there are things are going to evolve in terms of providing those facilities at the workplace, so that they don't go to multiple places and so they would contract any kind of infection and other things. So these are some of the aspects which I feel that will be opportunities, as well as reconfiguration of the way the business will happen.
Okay. Now, I think this is good because people will be thinking, oh, when you say post-lockdown readiness means you're not just talking about getting back to an office space and work. We talked about health and safety. We talked about the employees' well-being. We talked about communication. We talked about the various policies that we need to do. We talk about the strategizing, the approach of basically how you should get them to work. Plus, once when they are in work, what are the things that we need to do to train, to communicate, to update? Then, from an organization bigger umbrella perspective, this is the best time to think through the opportunities that is out there, and you use the time to shape it up and see what are all the space that I can operate to get ahead of the curve and be competitive, while you are thinking short term, but you're planning for long term. Okay, it's not in a negative sense, it's more in a positive sense, and see, I'm covered now, but I'm planning for my future, so that I'm sowing the seed right now. And then the aspects on the environment, the digital transformation, the customer focus is pretty good. So one thing I know we are almost hit the 1 hour belt, but I wanted to spend a few minutes that while you're talking about your readiness, also please, this one I want to get your thoughts on the vendor and customer readiness. The people who have come along with you in your success, right? Your suppliers, right? Your partners, so the partnership. So we have to take them along and then say what is happening in their world. So can we get your thoughts on that, please?
Sure. So, at the end of the day, it's an ecosystem. As I mentioned at the beginning, the people management includes employees, internal employees, external customers, vendors, everybody. It calls for the vendor management office, if you will. But it depends on the size of the company again. If you're a small company, you're dealing with a few suppliers, not a big deal. If you're a mid-size or large company, you're dealing with hundreds and thousands of suppliers in some cases. Everything calls for you got to look back as your vendor contracts, for example, your terms and conditions, your pricing strategies, your supply chain takes a huge hit, because anything you're relying on the supply chain for your distribution, and your supply chain takes a huge hit because of the current lockdown situation. That's going to directly impact how you're going to deliver your products and services to your customers, for example. Everything calls for complete review and redefining your relationship. But the thing here is to whatever points are valid for the employees in terms of clear communication, setting the expectations, balancing the act of inbound supply chain and outbound distribution. These are all extremely critical functions. Before I just continue on this topic, just one more topic is on the opportunity side, which we were just talking about it prior to this topic, is facilities management, right? The function of the facilities management is going to drastically change with the current situation. It's no longer somebody shows up once a day just to do a cleanup and walk back kind of stuff. This calls for a complete review of how do you keep your facilities. So if you're in a facilities management business, it's a great opportunity for them. If your internal facilities management are doing something, it's a great opportunity for them to do something very different. But going back to the customers, and I think we covered the customer aspects of it in terms of how do you engage with your customers by giving them avenues to deal with you in a seamless manner, be it online, be it virtual stores, whatever it is. When it comes to suppliers, I think it's a matter of aligning your customer expectations with your supply chain processes to make sure that you strike a balance, so you don't end up overstocking or you don't end up going out of stock situation with your suppliers, for example.
Yeah, so I think the point that I would like to add here is have a active engagement conversation with your vendor and then say how it has impacted their operating model, their operating principles, and their resources management. Because this is a separate topic that I would like to cover at another time, about project management and program management of, how do you resume your projects. That will be one of the future upcoming topics. So the thing is, because things are changed, so you're not operating with the same staffing. Your staffing is reduced, right? And then you are created a lot of dependencies of working with the vendor, and vendor might have other dependencies from a global, working with other partners where the supply have to come. With the airline industry having taken a hit also, there might be some challenges in procuring the parts if you're a manufacturing company, for example, or if you are dependent on somebody for your finished goods at the end of the day. All right, so the lot of things you need to get on an engagement model, re-engage your vendors and suppliers and have a conversation, not just once, and then say, hey, together we got to be ready. Can you support me? I mean, we support each other, and how it is. Sometimes, you know what, I think even the contract needs to be redrafted in some cases, like our internal policies and procedures. You might have to redo this contract, and then not just for this time, for future, when you prepare a new contract with a new vendor, you might have to add some clauses where necessary. Talk to the legal department, they will tell you. They will all put another clause in case of situations like unprecedented like this. Here is what are the things that we do. That is some kind of thing you need to think through. So that itself is a we have to consult folks to see how you can help each other and succeed and get ahead of the curve, and of course while taking care of your health and safety. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. Yes, Prabhu, any closing thoughts? I did hope we covered a couple of angles as summarized, and this is a very interesting topic, and of course it's only tip of the iceberg. I would say there's more we can go in depth, but any finishing thoughts for you, Prabhu?
Yeah, Sundar briefly touched about wearables and detecting where the employees are present once they get into the campus. So there are a couple of other things like proximity monitoring, and also machine vision, where some places we might have, as a company, you might have to enforce certain things, and those things could be figured out, like if a certain group of employees are in close proximity, by like implementing like heat maps and identifying where there is a like engagement of more employees are happening, so that you can trace the source of the issue later on if anything happens. And there are a lot of startup companies who are offering services and products around this area, and like smart watches and density identifying equipment and smart videos and all those things. So I think good area for companies to explore those kind of new wave technologies to help and strengthen their employee workforce with those kind of things, to enforce these things. Some of it is for the well-being of the employee. Communicate to them that it is for their good and for the company's good, and constantly educate, and so that all of us come out as winners in this whole thing. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. And Sundar, I just wanted to go back quickly because I noted some questions for you. You mentioned about the disaster recovery and business continuity plan. They go for a task. So I just wanted to ask you, share my comments and ask you this to respond, request your response, which is they may not be still valid, but we need to review and rethink and go back to refine them to suit the new environment and make sure we still continue to test
Yep.
the process to make it work. Oh, any finishing thoughts for you on
Yeah,
that?
so just to be very clear on that, and I'm not dismissing what people have already put in place. BCP and DR have been around for decades together for every single businesses. What it calls for today is the so-called new normal that necessitates people to go back to their DR plans and BCPs and make it more comprehensive than what it used to be historically. So historically, they used to think about what is in my data center, primary, secondary data center. If my primary goes down, what am I going to, how am I going to quickly switch to a secondary DR? That's where it stopped. And from a business standpoint, if there is a natural calamity or there is a disaster, they figure out, how do I run my business? How do I continue my business? That's where it stopped. But this one, is the scale and size of what's happening right now, nobody has seen that in the last 100 years, for example, right? Which means that your BCP plans and DR plans call for much more comprehensive, inclusive measures to be in place. In case if you end up, we don't want anyone to go back, go through another situation like this anytime in the future. But if it happens, you got to be prepared. So businesses have to look at preparing themselves better to handle these kind of. Nobody expected a lockdown, a sudden lockdown. Nobody anticipated all the stores getting closed in a short notice, for example. And nobody even knows, this is going to continue for so long, like 100 days, for example. If it is a 1 week natural disaster, like a snowstorm in East Coast, for example, or a hurricane in South, for example, they bounce back after a week or 2 weeks, worst case scenario after a month. We are talking about 3 months right now, right? Nobody has experienced this before. Now, this calls for enterprises to go back and take a look at what they have put in place, which was in practice for the last 20 years, which did not work during the current lockdown situation, and make it more comprehensive and test it so that they can be better prepared, if at all it happens in the future. That's what I mean.
No, totally fine. And also, we wanted to wish our listeners best wishes to keep the social distance, maintain social distance, and stay safe, healthier. And also, thank you for joining viewers from whichever part of the globe you are. By the way, the recording of this is available in the same link in YouTube as well as in Twitter, as well as in Facebook. So you can always go back to this. And again, I wanted to leave a disclaimer. We are sharing this information from our learnings, from our experience, and we care for the community and sharing. Viewers and listeners, discretion advised. Okay, thank you so much. This is an HTIF presentation. This is Srinivasa. Thank you very much once again, Sundar and Prabhu, for a very nice 1 hour that has gone very quickly. And we touched the tip of the iceberg, but maybe we'll catch you up at some other time. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.